can be only one podcast, and may it be the Prince of the Universe. Hi, folks, I'm Matt, and this is the Calm Before the Storm. Yes, that's right. Episode 300, our live episode, is coming up next week. I plan on having Bruce and Wes here to answer questions and whatnot. But before then, Bruce and I were supposed to do a podcast on movies. Unfortunately, we never saw Ant-Man. Neither one of us did. So it was supposed to be on Ant-Man. We had plenty of time, and we just didn't go see it. None of us have the motivation to go see Ant-Man. We are both waiting for Disney Plus, we've decided. That's how far Marvel has fallen for us. So I guess we'll give the review then. I thought about giving a review for Scream 6. I guess I'll do it now. Scream 6, let me see, non-spoiler right now. Scream 6 sucked. I was a fan of 1 through 5. I even thought 5 had some decent stuff in it, and it wasn't because Neve Campbell wasn't in it. That wasn't the reason. It just sucked. Now, for me to go into detail, I will have to go to spoilers. Don't know if I want to go to spoilers yet. The movie would be a few weeks out by the time this comes out. But I will say this, there are no consequences or final consequences in this movie, and it leads up, again, no spoilers here, but it's supposed to be about this legacy, the legacy movies that always point to the very beginning. They go back to the very beginning, and it's showing, it's pulling things from what happened, of course, in the last movie, but 4, a character from 4 is back. That's not a spoiler. A character from 4 is back. And then, of course, it's pointing back to the first 3 movies. And what is the final, reveal? And it's bupkis. It is garbage. It is such garbage. I have loved every Scream movie that has come out. This one, no good. No, should they stop making them? Yes. Creatively bankrupt. And it's sad because you don't want them to stop when they're on a roll, but now, yes, they should stop. What if Neve Campbell comes back? It doesn't matter. There's really nothing else they got for this series. They have 0 new ideas. In fact, I heard the writers talking about things that, here's what we thought about doing. Well, that sounded even worse. So obviously they're creatively bankrupt. They shouldn't do any more. I don't know how it did in theaters, but to be fair, it just was not good. Not a good movie. When I watch all the movies, I will enjoy them all, but this one I will have a headache watching again. So there you go on that one. The other movie that, I probably will want to talk about this later, was John Wick 4, which as of this podcast date, I have not seen yet, but I'm possibly going tonight, which is why we're recording it now. But I'm possibly going, I'll be out tonight. So anyway, what I wanted to talk about was Return to Endor. Everyone likes writing short stories. It's fun to write one. Most of us cannot write, or, we only write to entertain ourselves. And that's my tip for everyone who's writing EU fiction. Write to entertain yourself. You want to give it out to other people, that's fine, but be open to criticism, because there's going to be some criticism. And to be fair, a lot of people aren't going to like it. And I know of good people who have written, fun stuff. Noah wrote a sequel to the Jedi Prince series. I love the idea. And the story's fun too. Will it be part of my canon? No. Technically, it won't. It won't. Just because Noah's Noah. And that's not a slight on Noah. I respect Chris Nelson too, but if he wrote a short story, I'd read it, enjoy it, but it wouldn't be part of my canon. So you can't expect people to just go ahead and wholly accept it. And then plus, write it just for you. Write it to have fun. This little story was written by me. I would love to have it, be part of my canon in a way, and I guess it could be. Because I could accept it, but I don't think everyone would, and I don't think everyone should. I'm not any authority or anything. Matt, when are you going to bring it out for us to read? Well, never. I don't know. It's only in a poor rough draft. I wrote this when I was still in college, so probably I was 21, 22, somewhere around there, and it's terrible. I didn't like writing back then, but I wanted to write a story. I remember I was motivated. I remember remember, the New Jedi Order, Del Rey, they weren't here yet. They came out, I think, October was the first Del Rey novel, Vector Prime. So this hadn't premiered yet. This was written way earlier. It may have been written in 98, now that I think about it. But Bantam was moving along, and there was just a lot of what I felt loose ends. I had no idea that Del Rey was going to tie up most of. I mean, like I would totally, not totally, but a lot of this story, I would have to, because I tried to make references to Ragonda and Eric and talked about, kind of wrap up what happened to them in one story arc. And I was trying to wrap up all these, what I felt were loose ends from the Bantam novels, as well as make a story about, my favorite Ewok movies, characters from the Ewok movies. I really thought it was cool in Black Fleet Crisis when Admiral Drayson mentions Sindel Tatwani of the Life Monitor magazine or newspaper or whatever on Coruscant. I was like, what? It was a nice little wink to the Ewok movies. There hasn't been many mentions to those movies. That was the first solid one that I remember reading, and I was blown away. Sindel Tatwani exists in this universe. Of course she does, but finally someone mentioned her, and we kind of know what she's doing now. So it got me thinking, hey, what if she, went back to Endor and saw Wicket? Because we know Wicket got married, and at this point I did know that he got married, so I don't know what source book that was I read that from. I want to say it was a Wizard of the Coast source book, but that means this would have happened in 99. Either way, I don't recall, but I always knew that Wicket would marry Kanisha and become tribal chieftain. Maybe that was in the Return of the Jedi West End Game source book. Either way, I wanted to write the story and have her come back, have Noah come back. I had this idea, it developed over time, and I decided to write it. Now, I used to save this on what was called an A drive, I think, or zip drive. It was like a floppy disk with a hard outer shell. And it's smaller than a floppy disk. That's the best I can explain it. Man, I love zip drives. I thought zip drives were the future. I mean, and for 2 months they probably were. But I saved everything on zip drives. Zip drives, you could fling them across the room and they wouldn't break. And they were easy to upload stuff and download stuff and access stuff. It seemed you could access it faster on a zip drive. And every computer had a zip drive back then. And I remember the color of mine. The color of mine was green. It was a green zip drive. Now that zip drive is gone. Either I threw it away or probably threw it away because there's no way I can access it. But that's where I saved my story on. And I printed it out before I saved it because I wanted my brother to grade it for me. Now it was my first draft and it's very poorly written. I'm going to read some sections out of it to prove that to you. But I was writing away, and I remember exactly what I was doing. I was working for the assessor's office, and during my lunch breaks, and probably my work time too, I was just working on this novel. There was very little to do at the assessor's office when I was in college. They gave you a weekly workload, but if you really put your nose down to the grindstone, you could finish it in half a week. So by Wednesday afternoon, I'd have everything wrapped up for the week. And I found out that if you did it early, they didn't care what you did afterwards, as long as you got your weekly quota in. So I finished my weekly quota and then would just play around for Thursday and Friday. So Thursday and Friday were my writing days where I kind of took the time to, and I want to say write this book, but I really didn't. It's just really awful. But the idea was that Sindel Tatwani, this happens after Black Fleet Crisis. She gets an invitation from Wicket to visit her on Endor to attend his wedding. She decides she's going to. She meets Noah, who I think is on Coruscant. He may have moved to New Alderaan. I can't remember where I had him. I thought he'd like someplace peaceful, or maybe he likes the city, or maybe he stayed in the city and now he moved to a planet more quiet like Endor. And he's getting older. He has an orderloon like Max Rebo. He has a caretaker. That's an orderloon, because you'd never hear about them in the expanded universe. And so I thought except for Max Rebo, but I created a character that would be the caretaker, who Sindel Tatwani has either assigned to Noah or Noah has hired, because Noah always has to have a little friend like Teak. And Noah is up for one more adventure. He's getting really old, and he's tired of the house. He's tired of the quiet. He wants to go on one rip-roaring adventure and wants to go back to Endor. Secretly, though, he wants to see his old hut. He wants to visit Teak and all that. Well, long story short, they travel there. Also, 2 Jedi will join the entourage going to Endor. Luke has tasked Zach and Tash Aranda from the Galaxy of Fear series. Their adopted caretaker, Hool, was what was he, a planetologist? I don't remember what you call him. Archaeologist? Not really. Either way, scientist. From the Star Wars Illustrated Universe, if you recall, the Imperial scout who did the review of Endor gave a terrible report. And that's the only thing taught in the Academy still today, is that scout's report. No one has done a deep dive report of the planet Endor. Hoole's always wanted to, but he's getting older now and doesn't travel as much. But the Jedi children, Zach and Tasha Randa, have decided that, every Jedi takes on a role of some kind of career, and they decide they're going to be mapping out planets and stuff, planetologist or whatever. And they're going to go and just kind of do their dissertation of the planet Endor and following Professor Hoole's footsteps. And Hoole decides to join them too because, he's excited about them graduating from the Academy, and this is going to be their first mission, and Hoole's coming along. So you kind of got the Galaxy of Fear people involved too later on. Now, way later on, I was going to have Sindel and Zach Aranda fall in love in this one, and that was going to be a match made in the EU that no one was going to see coming. But right now, they're all going to fly to the planet. They're just under the guise of just helping out to, just come along on the mission just to do a survey of Endor. But when they get there, a few things happen. First off, Sindel is enjoying all the crazy antics of Wicket and his brothers as they're getting ready for the wedding. A little infighting, a little scuffling, a little embarrassing stuff happening. Maybe paint falls on Weechee or someone like that, and you hear the word Feege and Lurdo, and it's good old times for Sindel Tatwani. She does visit the graveyard of her family and regrets being too busy to come, and then wonders if she was staying away on purpose because she didn't want to, meet the reality that was, her family's death. Meanwhile, Noah is aghast to find out that Teek passed away a few years earlier. They don't live very long. Teek was older and passed away. Noah's upset because he really wanted to see Teek. That was really his true fan. He remembers exactly the pathway to his old house, but his old house is crumbled. It's vines and branches have grown all through it. It's unlivable. There's a few old pots and pans he remembers. The stove is, run down, rusted over. And it's kind of sad because it's not his home anymore. He was kind of hoping for a return home, but he doesn't get the safe home. While he's wondering, it goes in and out. Zach and Tash Randa in the Star Wars Illustrated Universe, they show these beautiful sea harbors from Endor and Ewoks that live by the sea. And I was like, wow, that'd be great to explore. So Zach and Tash Randa and Hoole are kind of going to all these spots, and certain, like not Chukothrot because he's dead, but other characters from the movies, maybe Tonk is with them or something like that. And they all kind of show them the sights of Endor. And so as so it's balancing in between these three story arcs here. And it'll flash back to Noah. Noah is walking through the woods, and he finds the statue of Terok, who had been, frozen to brimstone or whatever, as he's, fist is clenched around the ring. And he's kind of been hardened into bedrock or whatever. Well, Noah is just so frustrated. Terok was a terrible person, and he hated him, and he killed his friend. I can't remember what his friend's name was, Saul. And he's just so mad at him and so mad at how his life he feels has been wasted. And Noah's a little bitter, like Noah, is. Wilford Brimley is, I should say. And so he gets his nice little hard cane and smashes the statue of Terok to the ground. I mean, it just crumbles to dust. And the hand, even though Noah walks away, he doesn't realize he's cracked open the hand, which is revealing the magic ring that Sherelle had. Well, little do we know, we find out that Noah walks away and maybe hears a crow crowing, in the background. And that's, kind of foreshadowing, because we find out that crow, of course, is Sherelle, who's been in a crow state this entire time. She's been trying to peck at the hand or drop nuts or rocks on the hand, but her little beak can't peck through the wood or the petrified fist, and anything she drops on there. And she tries to, get a herd of animals to run through there, but no animal or anything will go near it. Nothing living will go near it. It's still kind of ominous. and kind of all the living creatures stay away from it. So she can't get anything to happen, to get to get to that ring. Well, when Noah smashes the statue, she finally has access to the ring, returns to herself, finds out she's super old, screams to the heavens, wants revenge on the Ewoks. And knowing that Sindel Tatwani's back, she definitely wants to do that. So she gets the Duloks, who at this point are defeated. They're defeated. They can't beat the Ewoks, so they've basically given up. Sherelle's going to kind of embolden them with power and give them a speech. She's going to go to Morag, and I think defeat Morag, kill her, take over her evil Yuzum or whatever, and she's building this hodgepodge army. And we're going to go through like flogs from the Ewok cartoons, any of the villains from the Ewok cartoons that you can put realistically on the planet. She's going to create her hodgepodge army. Even some of the Marauders, the sister, or whether they're called Sarad, I can't remember their names right now, but even some of the Marauders, she is whipped up into shape. Even though they're kind of older and there's not that many of them left, she whips together this pretty grand army of a mix of things. Now it's a motley crew that kind of has some infighting, but her plan is to lead the army in there to attack the village. She doesn't want revenge on the Ewoks. She hates them, but that's not her point. Her point is to cause so much chaos during the attack that Sindel won't realize that Sherelle is going to steal the Star Cruiser, and she's going to try to get off planet, because she's been wanting to get off Endor. So it's just all a ruse, we find out later. That's like the big twist at the end. Now you're not going to care about reading this because you're already going to know the twist. She doesn't care about, defeating the Ewoks. Well, then Sherelle, like I said, there's going to be a big fight because she's kind of got the Force in her. Not as strong. Neither is Zach or Tash Aranda, but they're strong enough to take her on. Of course, it's going to come down to a meet. Probably I was going to have Tash Aranda and Sherelle square off, whereas Zach is going to help Sindel during the battle and rescuing Ewoks and whatnot. I don't know if I was going to kill anyone off, maybe an Ewok or two. You got to have some consequences from this battle, some sacrifice. Maybe Tonk finally sacrifices herself or whatnot, the priestess. Some memorable one. Not like Troy Denning wipe out everyone Godfather style, but something like that. And, just overall have a pretty solid story between the three. Hool was going to be transforming into different things, and maybe he's going to be he disappears. Maybe he goes off into the woods to study the eco life, the animal life, and the twins don't see him. I mean, the twins, Zach and Tash Aranda, don't see him throughout most of the story. Well, later on, we find out that he's been impersonating one of the Yuzum or whatever in the army. He's infiltrated the army and basically causes his own chaos to sway the battle in the another battle for Endor for the Ewoks. As they come out triumphant, settle with the peace treaty with all of them. With all the other beasts of Endor. So it kind of gives you a little happy ending. Will also end with Wicket and Kanisha getting married. Return to Endor was supposed to be part of a planned trilogy. I had my second story. It was going to be a very short story, I remember thinking, but it was going to be called An Ewok on Coruscant, where now, Sindel and Zach are getting married. They hooked up in the first movie, and now, the first book, and now they're getting married. And I thought about this like a year or so later. And so the Ewoks are going to go to Coruscant, but they're going to get on the wrong bus or whatever, get off at the wrong stop, and then kind of tear through the town, causing unintentional chaos. And Sindel and Zach are kind of following the path of destruction to trying to find the Ewoks, who will eventually uncover some type of pro-Imperial plot to take out maybe some Senate members or something. And it's totally by accident the Ewoks become heroes. So Leia's going to give them medals too, and then Zach and Tash Aranda will get married as well. But that was going to be way shorter an idea. And then, of course, after I started reading New Jedi Order, I thought about my third one. Honestly, this was just going to be a little duology, I thought. But then I thought of a third one, immediately calling it Dark Moons of Endor, where we flash forward a few more years during the Vong invasion, and Zach Aranda and Sindel Tatwani, or Zach and Sindel Aranda, now have a child. and they know Jedi children are at risk with the Vong. Zach he gets offered to put them on the ship, but he won't, since Sindel can't go too, Sindel needs to fend for her own. Sindel wants to not be separated, from her child, and she just wants to protect the child. She doesn't want to cover the war anymore because things are just gotten too dangerous. And so, she cares about her family because her original family died, so she doesn't want to be separated from her daughter. She has separation issues. This all should make sense to the reader who knows Sindel. So Zach agrees and says, well, we can't put you on the ship. Luke says it's, the more children, the less parents we're trying to do. So why don't I stash you on Endor? It's out of the way. It's not a post. It's not, a viable military, strategic location for the Vong. So I'll leave you there. And so he drops them off and then joins the battle as the Jedi are battling the New Jedi Order. And it's not really going to focus on Zach and his battles or his mission. He may be assigned to the Vox and Queen mission. He may be one of the Jedi assigned to that, or one of the random missions that were mentioned in New Jedi Order. Either way, though, it's going to focus on Sindel back on Endor, maybe having some fun with her child. But then we realize a scout ship from the Vong has landed on Endor. They really love Endor because it's free from technology, and the Ewoks do not use technology. So, and they seem to be brave warriors because a Vong is in hiding, let's say, and he sees these little Ewoks he doesn't think much of take down a big, dragon snake or something, Endor. So he's impressed. These little guys are warriors, and just like the Vong, they do not use technology. So he comes to the tribe. Of course, Sindel has to hide with her daughter or son. I don't know exactly who I want her to have. I mean, it sounds like they should have a little girl. That seems right. But at the same time, if she had a boy, she would call him Mace. And I think that would be a better matchup because it'd be in honor of her brother who passed away. Either way, they're hiding out when the Vong come to make a deal with Wicked, who's the chieftain. And Wicked does not approve of their ways, but he doesn't want to offend the Vong because, they don't know, they may get into a battle. So now he's kind of, they're kind of at a standstill. The Vong are like, hey, we're giving you a chance. We don't need you. We're just asking you to join us because you seem like honorable people who don't use machineries. And, so a mounting battle between the Ewoks and this little Vong troop it may happen because the Vong are trying to establish a little scouting base there. Well, of course, the Ewoks don't want that. They feel these Vong don't have any connection to the, tree of life or whatnot is what they find out. So a battle must take place. Now, the Vong are very dangerous. So they're going to slaughter some Ewoks too, but there's going to be a big fight, especially as the scout ship comes, drops off more Vong. That's when the Ewoks go into battle to kind of foil them and kick them off the planet. At the same time, maybe the kid gets a little reckless and he reveals himself to the Vong. The Vong kind of see him, realize there's a human child, realize there's a force-wielding child, and now the plot is on to take him and take Sindel too. Of course, the Ewoks going to rise up and battle some Vong. Now, of course, this is my furry dream, right? Ewoks versus Vong. What I've always wanted to. Who wouldn't want to see that? But I think that'd be really cool. And in typical, in honor of New Jedi Order, Sindel Tatwani, I'm going to spoil this one, was going to die. I was pretty sure I was going to have her sacrifice herself to the Vong, like she's getting questioned by the Vong, just like her dad was questioned by the Marauders. She sees her son and, yells at him to run. Because the Ewoks had kind of been taken by surprise maybe by the scout troop or whatnot, and they're getting captured again. Very similar to Ewoks Battle for Endor is what you're going to see here. And so he has to run, protected by a few other Ewoks. I don't know. But it had some decent ideas. But enough of that. I want to read. Told you I'd read a little bit about this. Geez, where should I start? Let me see. Let me start with chapter 1. I did a few. Bruce and I, during a few Prince of the Universes, I don't remember which ones, we used to read I used to read the first two or few paragraphs of every chapter when we did Prince of the Universe. I don't do that anymore. I can't remember what episodes I used to do that, but if you remember those episodes, good for you, because I probably read this first one. But here we go. This is how it kind of starts. Well, there's a little introduction here. Where is it? Peg shifted through an assortment of power converters, shoving them onto the floor with a clang. They have to be around here somewhere. And this is in italics, it's like he's thinking about it. The day had started off pretty good for the old thief. At first he thought he had an easy steal, but the natives of the planet caught him, and now he was trapped. The old thief had nothing to show for it, and now they had him surrounded with no way out. Peg moved the crate out of the way and began searching for the shelf behind it. I know it was around here somewhere. He brushed off the toolbox off the shelf. It hit the floor, scattering tools everywhere. He had to find it if he ever wanted off this Sith-forbidden planet. The dirty creatures had even taken his pants away. His pants! You know, and this is kind of... I'll say. Peg wiped the sweat from his forehead, looking down at his poor legs. Both were suffering from bruises he had incurred while trying to get the box off the top shelf, which had tumbled down on top along with several other patches and wires that he'd kept up on the top shelf of his ship. He felt miserable, but continued searching, throwing parts and whatnot out of the door into the storage compartment. Come on, where are you? Ah! Peg pulled out a long silver object. Looking at it, he headed back to the ramp. But as soon as he found it, he felt a sharp jab against his back. "Ichawawa," it said in its native tongue. Yeah, I got it. See, this is it. He held up the old message pod that was escorted outside the spaceship with 2 guards on each side of him. Peg set the silver pod on the ground while the 3 Ewoks backed away slowly. He had no idea what the Ewoks would want with it, and he didn't care. He just wanted out. Peg bent down and flipped the switch. There, he said. Now start talking. Now, what's going to happen is later on, she's going to get this silver message pod, and it's going to be the Ewoks. They want to send a message to Sindel. They caught this guy thieving or stealing from the village, and as penalty, he has to send, he has to be their messenger to send a message. Wicked probably was in charge of this, to send a message out to Sindel Tatwani. I just, that's how it's at first you're like, what is going on? And then later on, maybe in the first chapter, it'll be explained. I should have maybe kept that for like maybe the second or third chapter, but either way. Chapter 1. I'm only going to read maybe the first paragraph here. Sindel Tatwani sat behind her desk, skimming through the newest issue of the Life Monitor, a newsletter she had started no more than 4 years ago in her crammed apartment on Coruscant. Although it was not as famous as the Core News Digest, I just made that up, I think, it was far behind. It wasn't that far behind in popularity. During the Yavitha crisis, Sindel had published the infamous Platt Mahler tapes, which not only gave her galaxy-wide notice, but also boosted her newsletter to new limits. So much so that she had to hire help. What started off as just her now evolved into a 10-man crew with 3 droids helping her and helping her format the newsletter. She also hired 6 other journalists to gather stories from various parts of the galaxy. But her work didn't seem to get any easier. With a bigger audience now reading her newsletter, Sindel very seldom found time to do anything else. Running the newsletter was enough to drive an Ithorian crazy. Because Ithorians are so cool. Sindel heard a knock on the door and looked up. "Come in." The door whisked open, and in came a man with a green teal jumpsuit. "Good morning, Tizer. What's new on your side of the system?" Tizer, one of the first journalists Sindel had hired when expanding her newsletter, had been perfect for the job. He lived on Coruscant his whole life with his family. Soon after the Empire had been defeated at Coruscant, during the resurrected Empire's reign, Tizer's family got a job working security with the Senate, making Tizer one of the first to know about the outcomes of most Senate meetings before anyone else, making him an important asset to the team. Okay, I'm moving on. But anyway, I think he's going to talk to her about something, and then she's going to be interrupted by the pod and everything. Let's see. Okay. Wait, I know what I like about this. Okay, I'm going to skip to the end of it. We're almost done here. Retired Admiral Drayson sat on his couch, sipping a glass of Zoochberry juice. Jedi Prince. When he heard a knock at the door, the retired admiral set his glass on the table and got out of his seat with a heavy sigh. If this was another diplomat asking for support on another bill to be passed through the Senate, Drayson was going to pull out a blaster and start shooting. But when he opened the door, he was treated to a very unusual surprise. "Sindel?" Drayson looked over his robe and brushed the crumbs off off of it from breakfast. Now, anyway, she's going to talk to Drayson about a few things. And anyway, this is the end of it. Admiral, I know, Sindel said, headed to the door. Thanks, he said, and gave him one last hug and walked out the door. I'll send you a postcard when I get there. Ewoks, she said jokingly. Drayson laughed. I'll be looking for it. He shut the door to get dressed, but as he headed to the room, he heard another knock at the door. Who is it? Who is it? Drayson said. Admiral Drayson, a squeaky, high-pitched voice from behind the door said. It's Senator Clorin from Fondor. If you have a minute, I would like to speak to you for a moment. Sure, just hold on a moment. I'll be right there. Drayson headed for his blaster and approached the door. Tying into the very beginning of the chapter. Anyway, I don't know. I think I'm witty. What do you think? Folks, it's time for a live Q&A. Please don't miss it for Prince of the Universe 300. We'll see you next time on Princes of the Universe Live.